The Scale. What No One Tells You About Gaining Weight. By Cherry. Introduction. Why I wrote this book. It started with a number on the scale, but it quickly became about something much deeper. I remember standing in front of the scale one morning, watching the numbers climb higher than they'd ever been. My first reaction was what I had been conditioned to feel: panic, shame, self-blame. A mental checklist immediately began running: what I had eaten, how much I had moved, what I had done wrong. But as the noise in my head grew louder, something in me shifted. A quiet question surfaced. Why does this number feel like a verdict? That question unraveled everything. It led me down a path of uncomfortable truths, raw reflections, and deeper questions, not just about weight, but about what we attach to it. I started realizing that my struggle wasn't just personal. It was shared. The way I saw my body wasn't entirely my own. It had been shaped by culture, media, family, and decades of whispered expectations. Gaining weight was no longer just about food or fitness. It became a lens through which I began to see myself and the world differently. This book was born out of that shift. Out of the realization that we've been asking the wrong questions and offering the wrong answers. We focus so much on how to lose weight, but rarely do we ask, why did we gain it in the first place? Not just biologically, but emotionally, socially, and psychologically. We shame people into change without ever offering them understanding. At its core, this book is about empowerment. It's about recognizing that everybody has a story, and every story matters. Change, real, lasting, meaningful change, starts within. But it doesn't end there. When we begin to challenge toxic narratives in our own minds, we begin to shift them in the world around us. That's how collective transformation happens, one mindset at a time. Whether you picked up this book because you're struggling with your own body, supporting someone who is, or simply questioning the way society talks about weight, I'm glad you're here. My hope is that within these pages you'll find not just insight, but a mirror. A chance to see yourself, maybe for the first time, with clarity, with softness, and with truth. Welcome to The Scale. What no one tells you about gaining weight. This isn't a manual. It's a conversation. One I hope will stay with you long after the last page. Chapter 1. The weight we don't see. Not all weight is physical. Some of it is stories, expectations, and pain. The first weight I ever carried. Before I even knew what calories were, or how much a body could weigh, I knew what it meant to feel too much. Too loud, too soft, too emotional, too sensitive. Too big in spaces that wanted smallness. Long before I stepped on a scale, I had already learned how to carry weight. But it wasn't the kind of weight anyone could see. It was the weight of expectation. The pressure to be someone I wasn't sure I could be. The unspoken messages from family, media, and culture telling me how I should look, eat, speak, and shrink. I didn't know that I was already carrying a load long before my body began to reflect it. This chapter isn't just about the weight you might gain physically. It's about everything else you carry. The invisible heaviness that lives in your chest. The memories that sit behind your eyes. The tension in your shoulders. The inner critic in your mind. That's weight too. The hidden load of expectations. There's a certain kind of silence that surrounds weight gain. When you lose weight, people cheer, compliment, celebrate. When you gain it, they look away. The silence is loud. And in that silence, assumptions grow. They assume you've let yourself go. They assume you're lazy. They assume you're unhealthy, unmotivated, undisciplined. And worst of all, they assume they know your story. But they don't. What they don't see are the sleepless nights, the heartbreak, the hormonal changes, the medication side effects, the grief, the survival. They don't see the strength it takes to get up every day in a body that the world has decided is less than. They don't see the years of internalized self-doubt, the fear of judgment, or the emotional tug-of-war between hunger and shame. That's the weight we don't talk about. The kind that's rooted not in fat or muscle or numbers, but in wounds and whispers, in culture and control. Redefining what weight really means. We often treat weight gain as a math problem. Calories in, calories out. Eat less, move more. As if that's the whole story. As if bodies are machines and not ecosystems. But weight is not just biological. It is psychological, social, emotional, cultural, spiritual, even. Some weight is grief. Some weight is protection. Some weight is generational trauma passed down through family dinners and broken relationships with food. Some weight is the product of trying to stay safe in a world that has not been kind to your body. And sometimes, weight is what we use to anchor ourselves when everything else feels like it's floating away. When we start to see weight as a metaphor as much as a measurement, we begin to understand ourselves differently. We stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What am I holding on to?" Internalized beliefs, the voice in the mirror. One of the heaviest things we carry is not on our body but in our mind. It's that inner voice that criticizes us every time we see our reflection. The one that tells us we're not enough, that we need to be smaller to be worthy, that success equals thinness, that fat equals failure. But here's the truth. That voice isn't ours. It was taught to us. It came from the magazines we read as teens. The family member who made comments about our bodies at the dinner table. The doctor who looked at our chart and assumed everything wrong with us started with our weight. The wellness influencer who preached discipline disguised as disordered thinking. We absorbed these messages like they were facts. We turned them into internal truths. And over time, those beliefs became the silent architects of our self-worth. That they were never real. And they were never ours to begin with. To truly understand the weight we carry, we have to unlearn what we've been taught about ourselves. We have to challenge the belief that our value is proportional to our appearance. We have to recognize that worth doesn't fluctuate with our waistline. This unlearning process is messy. It's uncomfortable. But it's also liberating. A moment of judgment. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I walked into a cafe and ordered a slice of cake. Nothing extravagant. Just a simple treat after a hard week. As I walked back to my table, I caught someone staring not with curiosity, but with quiet disapproval. They looked at me, then at the cake. Their expression didn't say much, but it said everything. In that moment, I wasn't a person. I was a symbol, a cautionary tale, a stereotype. I could feel their assumptions fill the space between us like smoke. Of course she's eating cake. That's why she looks like that. What they didn't know was that I had just finished an emotionally exhausting week filled with personal loss, a therapist-recommended joy meal, and a breakthrough in how I approached food without guilt. They didn't see that moment as a triumph. They saw it as a failure. That day taught me something vital. People don't judge what you do. They judge what they assume about why you're doing it. And when you live in a body that doesn't fit the mold, you become a canvas for everyone else's projections. But you are not responsible for their assumptions. You are responsible only for your own truth. The binary trap. Thin versus fat, good versus bad. Our culture loves binaries. We want things to be clean, clear, and categorized. Thin equals healthy. Fat equals unhealthy. Thin equals disciplined. Fat equals lazy. Thin equals good. Fat equals bad. These binaries are not only oversimplified, they're dangerous. They erase the vast complexity of human bodies, human choices, and human circumstances. They reduce a deeply personal, nuanced experience into something that can be judged at a glance. But life doesn't work like that. And neither does health. And certainly not worth. We must break free from these rigid definitions. Because when we live in a binary, we force ourselves to perform a version of ourselves that isn't whole. You are not good for skipping dessert. You are not bad for gaining weight. You are not strong because you fit into smaller jeans. You are not weak because your body has changed. You are human. Gloriously complicated, wonderfully layered. And your body is not a moral issue. It's a vessel, a home, a partner, a living record of your life. Emotional roots. What are we really carrying? Let's talk about some of the emotional roots that often go unacknowledged. Trauma. For some, weight gain is linked to trauma. The body builds walls when the heart feels unsafe. Extra weight can feel like armor, especially for those who have experienced abuse or violation. Neglect. Food can become a hump for those who lacked emotional nurturing. Eating can be a way to feel seen, soothed, or in control. Perfectionism. For high achievers, food may be one of the few areas of rebellion or self-expression. Control. When life feels chaotic, food becomes one of the only variables we can control, until it controls us. This is the reality. No one gains weight in a vacuum. There is always a story. And until we understand the story, we cannot begin to heal. Reclaiming the narrative. To reclaim your body is to reclaim your story. It means shifting the internal narrative from punishment to partnership. From loathing to listening. From shame to sovereignty. Ask yourself, what am I carrying that I haven't let go of? Whose voice do I hear when I judge myself? What would change if I approached my body with curiosity instead of criticism? You don't have to love your body every day to respect it. You don't have to be at peace to begin healing. You just have to be willing to see your weight, all your weight, as a message, not a mistake. Chapter summary. Key takeaways. Weight is not just physical. It's emotional, social, and cultural. We carry more than fat. We carry shame, silence, trauma, and expectations. Internalized beliefs shape our body image more than reality. Many of the voices in our head aren't ours, they're borrowed. It's time to return them. Binary thinking is limiting and harmful. The world isn't divided into good and bad bodies. There's no moral hierarchy in health. Judgment often comes from projection. People see your body and make it about them. But their story isn't your truth. Healing begins with awareness, not blame. Understanding your own weight journey starts with compassion, not correction. Reflection prompts. What kind of weight am I carrying that has nothing to do with my body? When did I first learn that my worth was tied to my size? Whose standards am I holding myself to? And are they serving me? What assumptions have I internalized about good versus bad bodies? What would freedom look like for me in my body? This is only the beginning. In the next chapter, we'll explore the biology behind weight gain, not to pathologize it, but to demystify it. When we understand what our bodies are actually doing, we can finally stop punishing them for trying to protect us. Ready to dig deeper? Chapter 2. Biology isn't the enemy. Your body is doing its best to protect you even when it doesn't feel like it. We're taught to look at our bodies as problems waiting to be solved. When we gain weight, the narrative is always the same. You must have done something wrong. The solution? Diet harder. Exercise more. Control yourself. Fix yourself. But what if you didn't break anything? What if your body was working exactly as it was designed to? What if weight gain wasn't your failure, but your body's way of keeping you alive in a world that often forgets how to care for itself? In this chapter, we're going to shift away from blame and toward biology. We're going to strip away the judgment, the toxic myths, and the boot camp mentality we've been fed for years. Instead, we're going to look at what's really happening inside us when we gain weight, not from a place of fear, but from a place of understanding. Because biology isn't your enemy. Biology is your blueprint for survival. Biology. The missing piece in the conversation. Let's get one thing clear. Your body's number one job is to keep you alive, not to look good in jeans, not to fit into cultural beauty ideals, not to maintain a flat stomach or a certain number on the scale. Survival comes first. Everything else is secondary. The systems that regulate weight hormones, appetite, metabolism, energy storage are incredibly complex, interconnected, and highly individualized. Yet we've been taught to treat them like they follow a basic equation. Calories in, calories out equals weight loss or gain. This is a dramatic oversimplification. In fact, relying on this formula as the only explanation for weight gain is not only inaccurate, it's harmful. Let's dive into the real science. The cortisol factor. Stress is a metabolic influencer. Have you ever noticed how during highly stressful times, your body changes, your sleep worsens, your appetite spikes or crashes, you feel inflamed or bloated? That's cortisol at work. Cortisol is the body's primary stress hormone. When we experience emotional, mental, or physical stress, our adrenal glands release cortisol as part of the fight or flight response. In small doses, this is normal and healthy. But in chronic stress, cortisol remains elevated. Here's what elevated cortisol can do. Increase fat storage, especially around the abdomen. Slow metabolism. Raise blood sugar levels. Increase cravings for high-calorie, high-fat foods. Disrupt sleep, which we'll get to next. The modern world keeps us in a near-constant state of low-level stress commuting. Deadlines, toxic relationships, social media comparison, and financial strain all contribute. We blame ourselves for gaining weight during these times, but in reality, our bodies are responding to perceived danger by doing what they've evolved to do. Store energy for survival. This isn't a failure. It's a feature of the human design. Sleep, metabolism, and the weight equation. Now let's talk about sleep. Sleep deprivation affects nearly every system in your body, especially the ones that regulate hunger, energy, and weight. When you're sleep deprived, ghrelin, the hormone that increases hunger, rises. Leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, drops. Insulin sensitivity decreases, leading to more fat storage. Cravings for carbohydrates and sugar increase. The brain's impulse control diminishes. In short, you're hungrier, your body holds on to more fat, and your ability to make balanced decisions is impaired. And yet, no one ever tells us that our lack of willpower might actually be our lack of rest. In a culture that glorifies productivity and hustle, sleep is often the first thing we sacrifice. But your body keeps score. Over time, poor sleep can compound stress, alter hormones, and slow your metabolism, leading to weight gain, even when your diet hasn't changed. Insulin resistance, a hidden player. Insulin is another key hormone in weight regulation. It helps move glucose, sugar, from your blood into your cells for energy. But when the system is overwhelmed, often due to poor sleep, stress, inflammation, or genetic predisposition, your body may develop insulin resistance. This means your cells stop responding efficiently to insulin, leading your pancreas to produce more of it. High insulin levels can promote fat storage, make it harder to lose weight, increase fatigue, cause blood sugar swings, which increase cravings. Insulin resistance is common, especially in people with PCOS, type 2 diabetes, or metabolic syndrome, and it often develops before any noticeable weight gain. The problem? It's often dismissed or misdiagnosed until the weight gain becomes visible. This again reinforces the false idea that weight is just a matter of effort. In truth, your body could be in a hormonal loop that needs support, not shame. Genetics and set point theory. Why bodies differ. Here's something no diet book ever told you. Your body has a natural set point, a weight range it tries to maintain based on genetics, environment, and biology. Some people naturally sit at a lower set point. Others are meant to carry more fat as part of their natural, healthy blueprint. When you diet or over-restrict food to push your body below its set point, it fights back. Metabolism slows down. Hunger signals increase. Satiety cues decrease. The body becomes more efficient at storing fat. This is why dieting often leads to temporary weight loss, followed by rapid regain, sometimes even more than you lost. It's not that your body is betraying you. It's trying to protect you from what it perceives as starvation. That's right, your body interprets restrictive dieting as a threat to survival, triggering biological mechanisms that drive weight back up. This isn't laziness or lack of motivation. It's an evolutionary safeguard. When dieting backfires, the biological boomerang. Let's be honest, many of us have tried to control our weight through restriction at some point. Eat less, exercise more, cut carbs, skip meals, juice cleanse, detox tea, you name it. And at first, it may seem like it's working. The scale goes down. Clothes fit better. Compliments come in. But what happens next? The weight loss plateaus. Hunger becomes unbearable. Energy crashes. Cravings intensify. Mood dips. The weight creeps back on. And now, not only are you heavier than before, you're also filled with guilt, shame, and self-doubt. You wonder why you couldn't just stick with it. But the truth is, you were fighting against biology. The body isn't designed to be starved. It's designed to survive. My story. When I did everything right and still gained weight. There was a period in my life when I became deeply committed to getting healthy. I tracked every bite, measured every portion, weighed myself daily. I exercised consistently, drank water, prioritized sleep, even meditated. I did everything right according to every expert, influencer, and health app. But something strange happened. I gained weight. I was confused, angry, embarrassed. I remember crying in my car after a weigh-in at the doctor's office, feeling like a fraud. How could I be trying so hard and still failing? What I didn't know then, but do now, is that my body was under intense stress. I had just gone through a breakup, moved across the country, and was navigating new trauma in therapy. My cortisol was high, my sleep was shallow, and my nervous system was overloaded. In that state, my body didn't care how many steps I took or how many calories I counted. It cared about one thing: safety. So it held on to weight, not because I failed, but because it loved me enough to try and protect me from further harm. That realization changed everything. It taught me that control is not the same as care, and that healing doesn't always look like shrinking. Body diversity is natural and normal. We've been sold a lie, that everyone's healthiest body looks the same. That fit means flat stomachs and thigh gaps. That health has a visual aesthetic. This is false. Human bodies are incredibly diverse, and that diversity is not a problem to be fixed. Some people are naturally lean. Some are naturally curvy. Some build muscle easily. Some don't. Some thrive on more carbs. Some on more fat. Some have medical conditions that impact weight. Some don't. The point is, health is not a size, and weight gain is not always a red flag. Sometimes it's a necessary recalibration. Sometimes it's a phase. Sometimes it's your body finally feeling safe enough to rest after years of restriction. We need to stop pathologizing normal, biological variation. Your body knows what it's doing, even if the culture around you doesn't. Chapter Summary. Key Takeaways. Your body's goal is survival, not aesthetic perfection. Cortisol, insulin, metabolism, and hunger cues are designed to protect you. Stress, sleep, and hormones play massive roles in weight regulation. Weight gain is often a biological response to life circumstances, not moral failure. Diets often backfire because they trigger your body's defense mechanisms. Chronic restriction leads to slowed metabolism and increased cravings. Your natural weight range, set point, is largely determined by biology. Forcing yourself below this range usually results in rebound weight gain. Bodies are diverse by design. Health and weight are not interchangeable. Trust the intelligence of your body. Understanding biology builds compassion. When you know what your body is trying to do, you stop punishing it and start partnering with it. Reflection prompts. What emotions come up when you think about your body's biological responses to stress or trauma? Have you ever experienced a time when you were doing everything right and still didn't get the results you expected? How has the diet industry influenced your perception of weight and health? What would shift in your mindset if you viewed your body as wise instead of broken? In what ways can you start working with your biology instead of against it? In the next chapter, we'll explore our emotional relationship with food, why we eat beyond hunger, how comfort and culture shape our choices, and why restriction often fuels obsession. If you've ever felt like food has power over you, you're not alone. Let's unpack that next. Chapter 3. Food, Fear, and Fulfillment. We eat for fuel, but also for comfort, culture, and connection. Food is one of the most universal elements of life, something we all need, share, and engage with multiple times a day. It's not just about calories or nutrition labels. It's about memory, meaning, and emotion. And yet, for so many of us, food has become a battlefield. We track it, restrict it, moralize it, fear it, binge it, idolize it, and, in many cases, weaponize it against ourselves. We don't just eat, we judge ourselves for eating. We don't just feel hunger, we question whether we deserve to satisfy it. Food has stopped being nourishment and started being proof of our worthiness. But food is not the enemy. Fear is. And healing doesn't begin with cutting things out. It begins with asking why we're so afraid of something so fundamental, so human, so essential. This chapter is about unlearning the stories we've been told about food, honoring the emotional and cultural roles it plays in our lives, and finally allowing ourselves to approach eating not with judgment, but with curiosity, compassion, and connection. The emotional role of food, more than just fuel. The phrase emotional eating is often used like a dirty word. But here's the truth. All eating is emotional. Food is tied to celebration, grief, tradition, comfort, pleasure, safety, and survival. We don't just eat because we're physically hungry. We eat because we're tired, lonely, stressed, nostalgic, or seeking joy. That's not wrong. It's human. Yes, there are times when emotional eating can become harmful, when it's the only coping tool we rely on, or when it becomes a form of self-punishment. But emotional eating in and of itself is not the problem. What we need to address is emotional starvation, the chronic suppression of feelings, needs, and desires that we try to bury with food, because we've never been taught how to process them. So when we sit down with a pint of ice cream after a breakup, the problem isn't the ice cream. The problem is that we don't know how to soothe our pain without silencing it. Emotional starvation. What we're really hungry for. When we're deprived emotionally, our relationship with food often becomes distorted. We begin using it as a stand-in for unmet needs. Not because we're weak, but because it's accessible. It's predictable. It's socially acceptable. It gives a sense of control in a world that feels chaotic. Some common emotional hungers that masquerade as physical hunger. Connection. Using food as a replacement for intimacy or close scenes. Comfort. Reaching for familiar foods to self-soothe. Control. Restricting food to feel powerful or disciplined. Reward. Associating food with being good or accomplishing something. Escape. Eating to numb out or avoid emotions. It's important to see this not as a failure, but as a clue. Your food behaviors are messengers, not mistakes. Ask yourself, what am I truly hungry for? Sometimes the answer is simply food, but other times it's affection, rest, reassurance, agency, understanding, space, freedom. You are allowed to meet your needs in more than one way, and you are allowed to untangle those needs without guilt. How culture shapes the plate. Food doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is shaped by the culture, family, and traditions we grow up in. For many of us, food is identity. Whether it's soul food in the South, rich spices in South Asian households, Mediterranean spreads, or East Asian rice rituals, what we eat is deeply tied to who we are. That diet culture has taught us to view these traditions as obstacles to health. How many people have felt shame for eating their grandmother's cooking because it doesn't fit the macros? How many cultures have been told their traditional foods are unhealthy, while westernized, often processed, low-fat options are praised? This is how colonization shows up on our plates. Healing your relationship with food sometimes means decolonizing it. It means reclaiming your traditions, rejecting the idea that there's a universal, healthy diet, and remembering that food is not just sustenance, it's story, legacy, and love. When healthy turns harmful, orthorexia and control. Let's talk about the dark side of clean eating. There's a form of disordered eating that hides in plain sight, often praised, shared, and even idolized. It's called orthorexia, an obsession with eating only foods perceived as healthy or pure. At first glance, it looks like discipline, but it often masks deep anxiety, control issues, and fear around food. Signs of orthorexic tendencies. Feeling guilt or shame after eating something unhealthy. Avoiding social situations involving food. Categorizing food strictly as good or bad. Experiencing anxiety when safe foods aren't available. Prioritizing diet over relationships, enjoyment, or spontaneity. I've seen this firsthand in myself and in others. The lines between health and harm can blur when the pursuit of wellness becomes obsessive. And unfortunately, our culture rewards this behavior. You get praise for skipping the cake, but not for healing your fear of it. But here's the thing. True health includes mental health. If your healthy lifestyle is built on fear, shame, and rigidity, it's not healthy. It's restriction dressed up in yoga pants. My story. When food became fear. There was a period of my life when food felt like a landmine. I was under a lot of stress, work pressure, relationship issues, unresolved trauma I hadn't yet faced. I didn't feel in control of much. So I turned to food not to eat it, but to control it. I made rules. I counted everything. I avoided oil, sugar, carbs, even fruit. I tracked every bite and punished every deviation. On the outside, it looked like I was thriving. People complimented my willpower and glow. But on the inside, I was exhausted. And eventually, the rigidity cracked. One night, after an overwhelming day, I found myself binging on everything I had denied myself: cookies, bread, chocolate, all of it. Not because I was starving physically, but because I was starving emotionally. I had deprived myself of joy, comfort, spontaneity, and the permission to just be human. The binge wasn't the failure. The restriction was. That moment taught me that food is not just about nutrients. It's about permission. It's about trust. And I had lost all trust in myself. So I started slowly. I began allowing foods back in. Not just the clean ones, but the ones that scared me. I stopped labeling things. I practiced eating without a calculator in my head. And most importantly, I stopped treating food as a test I could pass or fail. It wasn't easy. It still isn't some days. But it's honest. And that honesty feels like freedom. Language matters. Good versus bad, cheat versus treat. Think about how we talk about food. I was bad today. I cheated on my diet. I'm being good this week. That's a guilty pleasure. These phrases reinforce the idea that eating is a moral act, that food makes you either virtuous or shameful. But food doesn't have morals. A cupcake is not a confession. A salad is not a badge of honor. You are not good for skipping dessert or bad for wanting it. Let's retire this language. Instead of saying, I was bad, say, I ate something I enjoyed. Instead of cheat day, say, flexibility. I'm being good this week. That's a guilty pleasure. These phrases reinforce the idea that eating is a moral act, that food makes you either virtuous or shameful. But food doesn't have morals. A cupcake is not a confession. A salad is not a badge of honor. You are not good for skipping dessert or bad for wanting it. Let's retire this language. Instead of saying, I was bad, say, I ate something I enjoyed. Instead of cheat day, say, flexibility. Instead of guilty pleasure, say, pleasure. Words matter. And the more we change the way we talk about food, the more we change the way we feel about it. Rebuilding trust. From fear to fulfillment. If you've spent years in the diet and restriction cycle, it can be hard to trust your body around food. You might fear that without control, you'll spiral. That if you allow yourself what you want, you'll never stop. But here's the truth. Your body doesn't want chaos. It wants balance. And if you listen closely, it will guide you there. Rebuilding that trust means listening to hunger and fullness cues, not apps or external rules. Allowing satisfaction to be part of every meal. Honoring cravings without judgment. Recognizing emotional hunger and learning new tools to address it. Giving yourself full permission to eat. This is called intuitive eating, not as a diet, but as a framework to reconnect with your body's natural rhythms. It's a process, not a perfect solution, but it works, because it's based on trust, not fear. Chapter summary. Key takeaways. Food is not just fuel, it's emotional, cultural, and symbolic. Our relationship with food is tied to everything from family to identity. Emotional eating is not the enemy, emotional suppression is. When we can name what we're truly hungry for, we can begin to heal. Healthy habits can sometimes mask disordered patterns. Control disguised as wellness often leads to fear, rigidity, and anxiety. Language shapes our beliefs about food and self-worth. Reframing our words helps reframe our relationship with eating. Trust takes time, but it's the foundation of food freedom. Healing happens not through restriction, but through permission, patience, and presence. Reflection prompts. What messages did you receive about food growing up? How have they shaped your current habits? Have you ever used food to cope with something deeper? What was it trying to soothe or protect? In what ways have you labeled foods as good or bad? How could you shift that language? What does food freedom look like to you? How can you start honoring your hunger, not just physical, but emotional and cultural? Food is never just food. It's memory. It's connection. It's history. And most importantly, it's not a test you're meant to pass or fail. In the next chapter, we'll turn our focus outward toward the mirror and the media, and uncover how body image is shaped not just by what we see, but by who taught us how to see. Chapter 4. The Mirror and the Media. We don't see ourselves clearly because we're looking through someone else's lens. There's a moment quiet but powerful that many of us can recall. You catch your reflection in the mirror. Maybe it's in a fitting room, under the glare of fluorescent lighting. Maybe it's a candid photo someone else took. Maybe it's a morning when you're already feeling fragile. And instead of seeing a person, you see a problem. You zoom in on your stomach. Critique your skin. Hate your arms. The voice in your head isn't your own, but it's loud, familiar, and cruel. That voice didn't come from nowhere. It was planted over time. In magazines, in commercials, on TV shows, in filtered social media posts, in throwaway comments from childhood. It was built from a million images of what we were told we should look like, and the silence about all the ways we naturally don't. That's the mirror we've been handed. One shaped not by truth, but by agenda. One that reflects not who we are, but who we've been taught to become. This chapter is about that mirror, and the media that built it. We'll unpack the beauty myths we've swallowed, explore how body image gets distorted by culture, and most importantly, begin the powerful process of learning to see ourselves again, clearly, gently, truthfully. Because you are not your reflection. You are not what the lens tells you. You are more. You have always been more. The beauty myth. Selling shame for profit. In 1990, Naomi Wolf wrote The Beauty Myth, a groundbreaking book that argued something radical for its time, and still shockingly relevant today. Beauty is a currency system, one built and upheld to keep women preoccupied, controlled, and compliant. It wasn't born out of biology. It was designed, curated, and sold. Look closer, and you'll see it. A system that convinces us we are never enough, never thin enough, young enough, smooth enough, fit enough. It thrives on dissatisfaction. It needs you to keep buying products, plans, and promises in the hope that one day you'll feel worthy. But that day is always just out of reach. Because the standard keeps changing. Because the goalpost moves. Because if you ever did reach self-acceptance, the beauty industry would lose billions. The beauty myth isn't about appearance. It's about power. And the first step to reclaiming yours is understanding that the ideal body you're chasing is a construct, carefully designed to make you question your value. Body image versus self-image. The war within. Body image is how we see ourselves physically. Self-image is how we perceive our worth, capability, and identity. They may seem separate, but they're deeply intertwined. Especially in a culture where appearance is treated as currency. Many of us have absorbed the belief that to be beautiful is to be better. That our desirability determines our dignity. That our value is negotiable, based on how closely we align with aesthetic ideals. So when our body image takes a hit, our self-image follows. We feel smaller, less capable, less confident, less loved. This is not your fault. This is a result of years, decades of conditioning, of being shown one type of acceptable body over and over, until it etched itself into your brain as truth. But let me ask you something. Who decided what beautiful meant? Who told you that your worth depended on your waistline? And why did we all agree to that? These are the questions that begin to separate your true self-image from your conditioned body image. They don't have easy answers, but asking them is a powerful act of rebellion. Media messaging. Programming our perception. From childhood, we are fed a stream of images that tell us what's normal, what's desirable, what's valuable. And overwhelmingly, those images look the same. Thin, white, able-bodied, clear-skinned, symmetrical, cisgender, youthful, and now increasingly filtered. The lack of diversity in media representations creates what psychologists call perceptual distortion. The more we're exposed to a narrow range of beauty, the more we believe it's common, achievable, and required. This is how shame becomes systemic. We internalize the belief that anything outside of that mold is less than. We don't just dislike our bodies, we feel defective for inhabiting them. And we chase unattainable standards with diets, makeup, surgery, filters, and comparison, hoping to finally feel accepted in a system that was never designed to accept us in the first place. Worse, this doesn't only affect adults. Studies show that children as young as 5 express dissatisfaction with their bodies. That's not innate, that's learned. The media doesn't just reflect culture, it shapes it. And until we consciously challenge the images we consume, we stay stuck in a loop of dissatisfaction and striving. Social media and the highlight reel effect. If traditional media built the mirror, social media digitized it. Instagram, TikTok, filters, Facetune, angles, curated lives and bodies polished to perfection, shared daily. The difference now? It's personal. We're not just looking at models and celebrities, we're looking at our peers, our friends, strangers who go viral for their glow-ups and gym routines. And we compare ourselves not just to fantasy but to people who feel real. Except, what we're seeing isn't real. It's a highlight reel, the best moments, best lighting, best angles. The bad days, breakouts, bloating, sadness, and self-doubt, cropped out, filtered over. And yet, our brains don't distinguish between edited and actual. We scroll through perfection and subconsciously internalize the message. I'm not enough. Studies confirm this. Excessive social media use is strongly correlated with increased body dissatisfaction, especially among young women. Even brief exposure to idealized images can negatively impact mood and self-esteem. But the issue isn't just what we see. It's what we don't see. Stretch marks, cellulite, aging, disability, gender nonconformity, diverse body types, real skin, real life. We think we're abnormal because no one shows what's normal anymore. A moment that changed me. I remember the exact post. It was a side-by-side photo, before and after, of a woman who had lost 40 pounds. She was smiling in both photos, but the caption only praised the second one. I was in a vulnerable place recovering from a breakup, struggling with self-worth, trying to find stability. And in that moment, the message hit hard. If I could just look like that, maybe I'd be happy too. I saved the post. I followed her. I started mimicking her meals, her workouts, her life at least, the version she showed. And for a while, I felt motivated. Until I didn't, because no matter what I didn't look like her. I didn't feel better. I was hungry, tired, and still painfully insecure. And one day I found myself sobbing after eating a handful of crackers because they weren't part of the plan. That's when it hit me. I wasn't chasing health. I was chasing an image. Someone else's highlight reel. Someone else's life. Someone else's body. I had lost myself in the mirror of someone else's lens. That was the beginning of unlearning for me. I unfollowed accounts that made me feel small. I sought out body-diverse, unfiltered, truth-telling content. I started showing up for myself instead of punishing myself. And slowly, I began to see myself again, not as an object to be fixed, but as a human being with depth, story, and value. Breaking the mirror, reclaiming your reflection. Rebuilding body image doesn't mean loving every inch of yourself 24/7. It means making peace with your reflection, even when you don't feel like it. It means recognizing when the voice in your head is borrowed from media messaging, challenging automatic thoughts with curiosity instead of judgment, choosing to engage with media that nourishes, not diminishes you, practicing seeing your body as a part of you, not the whole of you. You are not an image. You are life. A beating heart, a set of lungs, a soul in motion. You are not here to be pretty, you are here to be real. And real doesn't fit into filters. Tools for building image resilience. Here are a few evidence-based tools and practices that help reshape body image. 1. Media literacy. Learn to critically evaluate media messages. Ask, who benefits from me feeling insecure about this? What is being sold to me here? Is this image edited or curated? 2. Social media cleanse. Unfollow accounts that trigger comparison or shame. Follow creators who show body diversity, aging, acne, scars, and realness. 3. Mirror work. Practice standing in front of the mirror and saying kind, neutral, or even just observational things. Not I love my thighs, but maybe. These are my thighs. They exist. They hold me up. 4. Body function appreciation. Shift focus from appearance to ability. These legs carry me. This stomach digests my meals. These hands write, create, hold. 5. Affirmation reframing. Instead of I must love my body, try, I don't have to punish myself to be worthy. I can respect my body even on hard days. I am more than how I look. Chapter summary. Key takeaways. The media distorts beauty to sell shame. You are not supposed to feel enough, you're supposed to keep buying. Body image and self-image are connected. When we attack our appearance, we erode our sense of worth. Social media fuels comparison, but it's not reality. Filters, lighting, and curation are not truth. Real bodies are diverse. You can break the cycle. Awareness is the first act of freedom. The next is choosing what you consume. Rebuilding body image starts with curiosity. Healing doesn't mean constant love. It means constant compassion. Reflection prompts. What's the earliest memory you have of feeling wrong in your body? How does your current media consumption affect your body image? Are there voices in your head that aren't yours? Whose are they? What would happen if you stopped chasing a goal body and started accepting your current one? What kind of content could help you see yourself more kindly? In the next chapter, we'll explore a bigger question. What does it really mean to be healthy? We'll challenge the medical myths, redefine health through a broader lens, and begin to rebuild from the inside out. Because health isn't a look, it's a lived experience. Chapter 5. Health isn't a size. Health is a spectrum, not a number. We live in a world where people can look at your body and think they know your story. They assume they can calculate your habits, your discipline, your self-worth based on your weight alone. If you're thin, you must be healthy. If you're fat, you must be unhealthy. This idea is everywhere in doctors' offices, in fitness ads, in everyday conversation. It's a belief so deeply ingrained that we often don't even question it. But we should, because it's not only wrong, it's dangerous. In this chapter, we're going to debunk the myth that weight is the most important or even useful measure of health. We'll explore how health is actually a complex, nuanced, and deeply individual experience. We'll talk about the health at every size, haze, movement, body neutrality, and the ways in which our medical system perpetuates harmful weight bias. And we'll look at how thinness can often be a mask, not a measure of well-being. Because true health can't be seen. It's felt. And it doesn't come from a number on a scale, it comes from how you live, how you move, how you nourish yourself, how you exist in your body. When we equate thinness with health, Let's begin with a reality check. Not all thin people are healthy. Not all fat people are unhealthy. These statements shouldn't be controversial, but in our culture, they are. We've been trained to believe that body size is the first, and sometimes only indicator of someone's health. That belief collapses under even the slightest scientific scrutiny. Think about it. There are thin people with high blood pressure, diabetes, and chronic inflammation. There are larger-bodied individuals with strong cardiovascular health, balanced hormones, and excellent metabolic function. Some people lose weight due to illness, depression, eating disorders, or stress, yet get praised for their discipline. Others gain weight due to medication, trauma, or hormonal shifts and are told they need to take control. We have created a health hierarchy based on appearance, not reality. And that hierarchy is killing people. Introducing health at every size. Haze. Health at every size. Haze is not a slogan. It's a paradigm shift. Developed by researchers and body liberation advocates. AES promotes the idea that health behaviors, not weight loss, should be the focus of medical care and personal well-being. Here are the core principles of HRAC. Weight inclusivity. Accept and respect the diversity of body shapes and sizes. Health enhancement. Support health policies that improve and equalize access to information and care. Respectful care. Address weight stigma and provide care that is free from discrimination. Eating for well-being. Promote flexible eating based on hunger, satiety, nutritional needs, and pleasure. Life-enhancing movement. Encourage enjoyable physical activity that suits the individual. Hayes doesn't suggest that everyone is healthy at every size. Instead, it argues that people of any size can pursue health and should be supported without bias, shame, or weight-based expectations. The dangerous reality of medical weight bias. Weight stigma in healthcare is not just frustrating, it's deadly. People in larger bodies often report being dismissed or misdiagnosed, having doctors attribute all symptoms to weight, regardless of the issue, avoiding medical care altogether due to previous negative experiences. Imagine going to your doctor with joint pain and being told to lose weight only to find out later that it was a misdiagnosed autoimmune disease, or seeking help for depression and being handed a calorie plan instead of therapy. This happens all the time. Studies show that medical providers spend less time with patients in larger bodies, express more negative attitudes, and are more likely to avoid discussing preventive care. This bias doesn't just affect fat patients. It harms thin ones too, because thinness can hide serious health concerns. Disordered eating, malnutrition, or autoimmune conditions often go undetected because a person looks fine. We must dismantle the false equivalence between size and health. The stakes are too high not to. Body neutrality. A more sustainable path. The body positivity movement has made huge strides, but for many people, the idea of loving their bodies feels out of reach, especially after years of shame, trauma, or chronic illness. That's where body neutrality comes in. Body neutrality shifts the focus away from how your body looks, and instead places value on what your body does. It doesn't demand self-love every day. It doesn't ask you to pretend you adore your thighs or belly or scars. It simply asks you to stop treating your body like the enemy. Body neutrality sounds like, I don't have to love my stomach to feed it. My body doesn't need to look good to be good. Today, I respect what my body lets me do even if it doesn't feel ideal. It's a quieter form of body liberation, but often a more sustainable one. It invites peace. It creates space for healing. And it honors the truth that our worth is not measured by how much we love our reflection. Thinness isn't a free pass. One of the most damaging assumptions is that people in thin bodies are automatically healthier or more disciplined. Let me tell you, thin people struggle too. I've known people with six-pack abs who binge in secret. People who live on energy drinks and anxiety, yet are praised for their appearance. People whose restrictive eating or over-exercising hides deep emotional pain. People who are undernourished, exhausted, and disconnected from their bodies. They don't get flagged at the doctor's office. They don't get unsolicited diet advice from strangers. They get applause. But health isn't measured by how little space you take up. And it doesn't live in the number on a clothing tag. We must stop assuming that thinness is a sign of self-control, or that larger bodies represent failure. Bodies are not moral reports, and appearances are not diagnostic tools. My story, when healthy, almost broke me. There was a time in my life when I looked the part. I was lean, active, and getting compliments constantly. Friends asked for my workout routines. Strangers praised my discipline. I looked like the picture of health. But inside, I was falling apart. I had chronic fatigue. My hair was thinning. I was freezing all the time. My digestion was a mess. And emotionally, I was hanging on by a thread. Turns out, I was severely undereating for months, triggered by a stressful life event and masked by what I thought was a clean eating phase. My body was breaking down. I was clinically malnourished, my cortisol was sky high, and I had early signs of adrenal fatigue. No one knew, because I was thin. And I didn't know because I thought I was doing everything right. It took a terrifying fainting spell and blood work to finally get the truth. I wasn't healthy. I was barely functioning. But my body had done everything it could to hold it together, to keep me moving, to protect me. And I had punished it for not being perfect enough. That moment changed how I define health. It's no longer about control, it's about connection. It's about listening to my body instead of micromanaging it. It's about honoring when I need rest, when I need nourishment, when I need joy. Health, I realized, is not something you chase. It's something you cultivate. So, what is health? If it's not about size, then what is health? Here are just a few of the dimensions we can and should consider. Physical health, energy levels, sleep, mobility, lab markers, immune function. Mental health, emotional regulation, mood, clarity, resilience. Social health, support systems, relationships, community. Spiritual health, sense of purpose, inner peace, values alignment. Nutritional health, eating in a way that supports not punishes your body. Restorative health, adequate sleep, downtime, and recovery. None of these can be fully seen from the outside, and none are exclusive to one body type. So instead of asking, am I thin enough? Try asking, am I rested? Am I nourished? Am I supported? Am I connected? Am I listening to myself? That's where real health begins. Redefining health on your own terms. You get to define what health means for you. Not your doctor, not a magazine, not a fitness influencer, not a clothing brand. You. Maybe your version of health is walking without pain. Maybe it's being able to pick up your kids or dance at a wedding. Maybe it's managing your mental health with medication and therapy. Maybe it's sleeping deeply. Maybe it's moving joyfully. Maybe it's feeling safe in your own skin. Health is personal, it's fluid. It changes with age, circumstance, and lived experience. And you are allowed to make peace with that. Chapter summary. Key takeaways. Thin doesn't mean healthy. Fat doesn't mean unhealthy. Health is multidimensional and cannot be determined by appearance. HAES is a framework that prioritizes respect and behavior over weight. Every person deserves access to compassionate, inclusive care no matter their size. Medical weight bias is harmful and often leads to misdiagnosis or neglect. Health systems must do better, and so must we. Body neutrality can be more healing than forced body love. You don't have to love your body to stop punishing it. You get to define health for yourself. Ask what truly makes you feel well, not just what makes you look better. Reflection prompts. How has your idea of healthy been shaped by culture or media? Have you ever assumed someone's health based on their body? Has someone done that to you? What would your definition of health look like if weight was not a factor? How can you begin to listen to your body more deeply? What is one small, sustainable change you could make to support your well-being? In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into the internal narrative, exploring how shame takes root, why acceptance is not the same as giving up, and how compassion might be the most powerful health tool of all. You've spent enough time fighting your body. It's time to come home to it. Chapter 6. The psychology of shame and acceptance. Shame keeps us stuck. Acceptance sets us free. There's a certain kind of silence that lives in the background of our lives. It whispers when we get dressed. It lingers in front of the mirror. It follows us into dressing rooms, onto the scale, into doctors' offices, onto social media feeds. That silence is shame. It's quiet but relentless. And for many of us, it's been with us for so long that we think it's normal. We confuse it for motivation. We wear it like armor. We believe it's the price of progress. But shame doesn't heal us. It hides us. It disconnects us from our bodies, from each other, and from ourselves. It builds walls where we need bridges. It's the voice that says, "You'll never be enough. Your body is a failure. You can't rest until you fix this." This chapter is about that voice, and how we begin to unlearn it. It's about how shame limits growth, how self-acceptance opens the door to real change, and how compassion, not control, is the most powerful tool for transformation. Because here's what no one tells you. You don't have to hate yourself into a better version. You don't have to punish your body to earn peace. You don't have to wait until you're fixed to feel worthy. You can begin right now by choosing a different path. The neuroscience of shame. Shame isn't just an emotion. It's a biological experience. A full-body shutdown of self. When we feel shame, it activates the limbic system, particularly the amygdala, which is responsible for emotional processing, and the fight-or-flight response. Our heart rate increases. Cortisol spikes. Blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, our reasoning center, diminishes. We become reactive, defensive, or frozen. In short, shame is a trauma response. Psychologist Dr. Brené Brown defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing we are flawed, and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. And unlike guilt, which says, "I did something bad," shame says, "I am bad." This distinction is vital, because while guilt can motivate reparative behavior, shame shuts us down. It doesn't inspire us to grow. It convinces us we're beyond help. When shame becomes chronic, especially around body image, it alters how we relate to ourselves. We disconnect from hunger cues. We avoid mirrors or weigh-ins. We overexercise or restrict to earn approval. We numb with food, substances, or distraction. We stay stuck in cycles of binging, hiding, and regret. Shame doesn't lead to lasting change. It leads to desperation, quick fixes, and self-loathing disguised as self-improvement. How shame sabotages progress. Here's a hard truth. Many health and wellness programs are built on shame. Before and after photos. Get your body back. No excuses. Summer body in 6 weeks. These messages imply you're unacceptable now, but with enough effort, you can become someone who deserves admiration. It's toxic. And it doesn't work. Studies show that people who feel ashamed of their bodies are less likely to engage in sustainable health behaviors. They avoid doctors and screenings, experience increased cortisol and chronic stress, are more prone to disordered eating, struggle with consistency due to all or nothing thinking. On the flip side, people who approach health from a place of self-compassion are more resilient, motivated, balanced, willing to try again after setbacks. Why? Because they're not driven by fear. They're driven by care. What acceptance really means. Let's be clear. Acceptance is not giving up. It's not saying, I guess I'll stay like this forever. It's saying, this is where I am right now. And I'm going to meet myself with honesty, not hostility. Acceptance means you stop waiting for the after picture to live your life. You allow joy and connection even when you feel imperfect. You listen to your body's needs without punishing it for having them. You make changes from a place of love, not loathing. Acceptance is the first step toward peace. And peace is where real, lasting transformation begins. Why forgiveness is essential. We carry so much guilt around our bodies. Guilt for the weight gained. Guilt for diets failed. Guilt for the years wasted. Guilt for the photos deleted. Guilt for the self-loathing we've internalized. But here's what I want you to know. You did the best you could with the tools you had at the time. The punishment didn't work because it was never supposed to. You weren't lazy or broken, you were coping. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It frees you from it. Forgiving yourself means acknowledging the pain without letting it define you. Releasing the inner critic that thinks you should have known better. Letting go of the idea that suffering is required for healing. And sometimes, forgiveness extends beyond the self. It means letting go of what your mother said about your body. Of what that doctor dismissed. Of what that partner made you feel. Of what the media taught you to believe. Not because those things were okay, but because you deserve peace. The first time I accepted my body, I wish I could tell you there was a lightning bolt moment. Some life-changing epiphany that turned everything around. But it was smaller than that. Softer. I was getting dressed for an event, something I normally dreaded. I had tried on 3 outfits, hating each one a little more than the last. I stood in front of the mirror, tugging at fabric, judging every angle. And then I caught my own eyes. Not my stomach, not my arms, my eyes. And I saw not a body but a person. Tired, tender, trying. I don't know why that moment landed the way it did, but something in me softened. I whispered to myself, this is the body that's gotten you through everything. The breakups, the losses, the anxiety, the pressure, the quiet battles no one ever saw. This was the body that never gave up on me, even when I gave up on it. I stopped pulling at the clothes. I exhaled. I put on the first outfit and walked out the door. Not because I felt perfect, but because I no longer needed to. That moment didn't fix everything, but it started something. Self-compassion, the most powerful tool for change. If shame is a cage, self-compassion is the key. It's the voice that says, this is hard and I'm doing my best. My worth isn't conditional. Setbacks don't mean failure, they mean I'm human. I don't need to earn rest or food or love. Dr. Kristen Neff, a leading researcher on self-compassion, defines it as having 3 elements. Mindfulness, acknowledging your suffering without exaggerating or ignoring it. Common humanity, recognizing that struggle is part of being human, not a personal flaw. Self-kindness, responding to yourself with warmth rather than criticism. Self-compassion is not indulgence. It's not letting yourself off the hook. It's accountability with care. When we offer ourselves compassion, we're more likely to rebound from setbacks, practice sustainable habits, build resilience, form healthier relationships with food, movement, and self. Compassion isn't a luxury. It's a skill. And like any skill, it gets stronger with practice. Practical ways to practice acceptance. Here are some tools you can use to cultivate self-acceptance daily. 1. Mirror work. Stand in front of the mirror. Make eye contact with yourself. Say something kind, even if it's small. You're doing your best. Thank you for carrying me. I'm listening now. 2. Name the inner critic. Give your inner critic a name and voice. When it starts speaking, talk back with compassion. Critic: you look awful. You: thanks, Cheryl, not helpful today. 3. Wear the clothes now. Don't wait to love your body before dressing it well. Wear what makes you feel good today, not someday. 4. Speak to yourself like a friend. If you wouldn't say it to your best friend, don't say it to yourself. Period. 5. Use compassion-based journaling prompts. Try questions like, what would it mean to care for myself today? What do I need that I've been denying myself? Where can I forgive myself a little more? Chapter summary. Key takeaways. Shame is a trauma response, not a catalyst for change. It keeps us small, scared, and stuck. Self-acceptance is the first step to true transformation. It creates space for growth without fear. Forgiveness is freedom. Letting go of guilt allows you to move forward. Self-compassion improves health, resilience, and motivation. It's not weakness, it's your greatest strength. You don't need to be fixed to be worthy. Worth isn't something you earn. It's something you already have. Reflection prompts. What messages of shame have you internalized about your body? Where did they come from? When was the last time you showed yourself genuine compassion? What did it feel like? What would change if you treated your body as an ally, not an adversary? Is there someone, including yourself, you need to forgive to move forward? What would it look like to choose acceptance, just for today? In the next chapter, we'll widen the lens, examining how the world around us responds to our bodies and the social implications of living in a culture that rewards conformity and punishes difference. But for now, take a moment, breathe. You've made it this far. That alone is proof of your strength. You are not your shame. You are your healing. Chapter 7. Navigating the world in your body. We don't just live in our bodies, we live in a world that reacts to them. Your body does not exist in a vacuum. It doesn't float, untouched, through space. It walks into rooms. It sits on buses. It moves through airports and classrooms and social gatherings. It is seen, interpreted, judged, complimented, critiqued, ignored, celebrated, feared, desired, and dismissed, depending on the eyes that meet it. That's what it means to live in a body in this world, especially a body that doesn't meet the cultural standard. We often talk about body image as a personal issue, but that's only part of the truth. Our relationship with our bodies isn't shaped in isolation. It's shaped by how we're treated in our bodies, how we're talked to, how we're made to feel, how we're included or excluded. The world doesn't react neutrally to every body. Some are applauded, others are policed. This chapter is about what it means to live in a body that the world misunderstands, marginalizes, or mistreats. It's about fat phobia and bias. It's about how weight intersects with race, gender, class, and ability. It's about the emotional toll of being too visible or not visible at all. But more than that, it's about truth-telling and empathy. And what begins to change when we stop pretending the playing field is equal and start seeing each other and ourselves with clearer eyes. Fat phobia. The bias we've been taught to ignore. Fat phobia isn't just about rude comments or bullying. It's a set of cultural beliefs and practices that devalue fat people and treat them as less worthy, less capable, and less deserving. It shows up in subtle microaggressions and in loud systemic exclusions. Examples of fat phobia include limited clothing sizes in stores, smaller airplane seats, booths, and public spaces, doctors dismissing symptoms and prescribing weight loss without investigation, fat characters in media used only for comic relief or pity, assumptions that fat people are lazy, undisciplined, or unhappy, unsolicited advice about diets, exercise, or health. And while fat phobia affects people across sizes, those in larger bodies carry the heaviest weight literally and socially. It's not just offensive, it's oppressive. Internalized fat phobia. When the world's judgment becomes our own. One of the hardest truths to face is that we've absorbed the same bias that hurts us. We've learned to hate our own bodies with the same logic that society uses to exclude us. This looks like feeling guilt or shame for eating in public, apologizing for taking up space, believing our bodies need to shrink to be worthy of love or success, holding other people to unfair beauty standards, being afraid to advocate for ourselves at the doctor's office. These thoughts didn't start with us. They were planted by media, culture, education, and even family. But just because we inherited them doesn't mean we have to keep them. Unlearning internalized fat phobia is one of the most radical acts of self-love we can commit to. It's how we begin to liberate not just ourselves, but each other. Intersectionality. When body politics collide with identity. Not all bodies experience the world the same way. Fat phobia doesn't exist in a vacuum. It intersects with race, gender, class, sexuality, and ability, creating layered forms of discrimination that compound depending on your identity. Race. Black, Indigenous, and people of color often face harsher judgments and more limited representation in body image discourse. For example, Black women are more likely to live in larger bodies, but also face stereotypes that pathologize or hypersexualize them. Fat phobia has colonial roots. It was used historically to paint non-European bodies as less civilized. Gender. Women are more aggressively targeted by beauty and body standards. Trans and non-binary individuals face unique challenges navigating gendered expectations around body shape, presentation, and size. Fat trans folks in particular are often erased entirely in both LGBTQ+ and fat acceptance spaces. Class. Access to wellness and diet culture is often reserved for those with privileged private gyms, organic foods, healthcare. Many food deserts and low-income areas lack access to fresh produce or health education, which can impact health and weight. Ability. Fatness is often pathologized as inherently unhealthy. The ableism overlooks the many disabled people who live in larger bodies and the unique barriers they face. Understanding these intersections matters. Without it, our body positivity becomes superficial, only inclusive of those who are acceptable within the margins of societal discomfort. Visibility versus invisibility. The double bind. Living in a marginalized body means you often experience two extremes. 1. Hypervisibility. People stare. Strangers comment on your size or food choices. You become a teachable moment for health, fashion, or morality. You're subject to public scrutiny, even when doing something ordinary. 2. Invisibility. You're left out of conversations, advertisements, friendships, dating pools. Your pain is dismissed. Your achievements are overshadowed by your appearance. You are passed over, not seen at all. This double bind creates emotional exhaustion. You learn to anticipate criticism. You overthink every outfit, every photo, every meal. You wonder if the attention you get is sincere or performative, or worse, if the lack of it means you're inherently unworthy. The toll this takes is real, and often unseen. A moment I'll never forget. It was summer, and I was shopping for a dress for a friend's wedding. I walked into a boutique with a friend who wore a much smaller size. The clerk greeted her warmly, helped her pick outfits, brought options, engaged. I hovered near the racks, knowing most of the clothes wouldn't fit me, but hopeful I'd find something. She looked at me once, then away. No greeting, no offer of help, no eye contact. After a few minutes, she said to my friend, "Let me know if you need anything." Not us, her. I wasn't invisible in size, but I was invisible in service, in dignity. I left the store empty-handed, not because I couldn't find a dress, but because I felt like I didn't belong. That experience stayed with me, not because it was the worst thing that ever happened, but because it was so ordinary. That kind of dismissal is daily for so many people, and the world calls it normal. But it's not, and it shouldn't be. How do we begin to change the world's reaction? It starts small. It starts personal. It starts with awareness. You don't have to change the world overnight, but you can change how you show up in it. 1. Notice your own bias. We all have it. Fat phobia, racism, gender bias. These aren't personal failings, they're cultural conditioning. But they can't be dismantled unless they're acknowledged. Ask yourself, who do I assume is unhealthy? Who do I admire? Who do I overlook? 2. Speak up. When someone makes a fate-phobic joke, comment, or assumption, say something. You don't have to be aggressive. A simple, "That's actually not true," or "That's a harmful stereotype," is enough to plant seeds. 3. Create inclusive spaces. If you're a leader, teacher, coach, designer, or manager, check your environment. Are your chairs, clothes, programs, or images body inclusive? If not, change that. 4. Honor lived experience. Don't center your voice if you're speaking about someone else's experience. Learn from marginalized voices. Follow fat activists. Listen to Black, disabled, queer, and trans people speaking about their bodies. 5. Use empathy as your lens. Everybody carries a story you can't see. The person you're judging might be surviving trauma. The body you're commenting on might be healing from illness. The shape you envy might be suffering in silence. Let kindness lead you. Chapter summary. Key takeaways. Bodies exist in context, not isolation. Culture, systems, and bias shape how we experience our bodies. Fat phobia is a systemic issue, not a personal opinion. It harms individuals and reinforces inequality. Intersections matter. Body-based discrimination compounds when layered with race, gender, ability, and class. Being seen or unseen can both hurt. Visibility comes with scrutiny. Invisibility with erasure. Change starts with awareness, empathy, and personal action. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be willing to see the truth. Reflection prompts. When have you felt treated differently because of your body? What assumptions have you made about others based on size? How do your race, gender, class, or identity shape your experience in your body? Who are you listening to, and who are you overlooking? What's one small way you can make the spaces you're in more inclusive? In the next chapter, we'll shift from awareness to action. We'll explore how the personal becomes political, and how individual healing can ripple into collective change. Because you are not alone in this journey. And the more we heal ourselves, the more we create space for others to heal too. Chapter 8. From self-awareness to collective change. When you understand your story, you begin to rewrite the narrative for others too. Healing often starts quietly. A single thought reframed. A kind word said to the mirror. An instinct to restrict met with compassion instead. And I'm sorry to a body you spent years punishing. These small shifts, repeated over time, become transformation. And that transformation doesn't stay contained, it ripples outward. Because once you start to see differently, you begin to live differently. You speak differently. You show up for yourself and for others in new ways. That's how personal healing becomes social impact. That's how one changed mind plants the seed for many. This chapter is about that ripple. About how your individual insights, your unlearning, your liberation can challenge systems, shift narratives, and inspire others. It's not about needing to become an activist or start a movement, unless that's what calls you. It's about living your truth out loud enough that others can find their way to it too. Because every time you choose empathy over judgment, truth over silence, and presence over perfection, you open a door for someone else. Change starts inside, but it doesn't stay there. So much of the body image and wellness conversation is focused inward. Which makes sense, our relationships with our bodies are deeply personal. No one else lives in your skin. No one else has survived your stories. But we don't exist in isolation. We live in families, communities, schools, offices, group chats, gyms, waiting rooms, online spaces. What we say and how we say it matters. How we show up in our bodies gives others permission to do the same. Your journey might feel private, but it never happens in a vacuum. Healing your relationship with food and your body means you speak with more kindness about other people's appearances. You stop reinforcing toxic beauty standards in conversations. You raise your children with different values. You advocate for representation in your workplace. You notice injustice where you once saw normal. You become a safer space for yourself and others. And this kind of change, it's contagious. The power of vulnerability and dialogue. We've been taught to shrink, to hide our insecurities, to present the illusion of perfection, to keep the messy parts of our healing quiet. But silence doesn't protect us. It isolates us. What creates connection is vulnerability. When we speak about our struggles, when we tell the truth about shame, body image, disordered eating, trauma, fear, we open the door for others to do the same. We create safe, unguarded spaces where healing is not only possible but shared. Think about it. The first time someone admitted they had body image issues, didn't you exhale a little? The first time someone said, "Me too," didn't it soften your shame? That's the power of being real. Dialogue, honest, non-judgmental, messy, emotional dialogue is one of the most radical tools we have, especially when it's rooted in lived experience and empathy. And you don't need a platform or a podcast or a book deal to create those moments. You just need the courage to tell the truth. One conversation that changed 2 lives. A few years ago, after giving a short talk about body neutrality at a community event, a young woman came up to me with tears in her eyes. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, trying to find words. Eventually she whispered, "I thought I was the only one who felt like this." We sat in the corner and talked for nearly an hour. She shared how she had spent most of her life trying to disappear, shrinking her body, her voice, her desires. She had grown up in a family where thinness was equated with love, and where food was both weapon and reward. She told me she hadn't worn shorts in over a decade, that she apologized every time she ate something bad in public, that she thought freedom was for other people. I didn't give her a list of solutions or advice. I just listened. I told her parts of my own story. I told her she wasn't broken. I told her she didn't need to wait until she was better to be allowed joy. Before she left, she said, "I'm going to wear the damn shorts tomorrow." That conversation wasn't broadcast. It didn't go viral. It didn't change the world. But it changed her day. And mine. That's the power of one vulnerable, honest exchange. Advocacy can be quiet or loud. When we think about advocacy, we often picture protests, campaigns, or public statements. And while those are powerful and necessary, not everyone is called to the same form of action. Advocacy can look like asking your workplace to include diverse body sizes in marketing or wellness programs, choosing not to comment on someone's body, especially during weight loss or gain, calling out fat phobia or body shaming in conversation, creating body-accessible events or making space for chairs that accommodate everyone, raising your children with language that honors all bodies, teaching students, clients, or peers that health is not a size. You don't need to be an expert to advocate. You just need to be awake. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to care. And when you use your voice, especially when you hold privilege, you amplify those who've been silenced. Rewiring conversations in everyday life. Culture doesn't just live in policies. It lives in language, in small talk, in compliments and offhand jokes and group norms. So if we want to create a more body-liberated world, we start by changing the conversations we're already in. Here are a few shifts you can make. Instead of, "You look amazing," "Have you lost weight?" Try, "You seem really happy, what's been bringing you joy?" Instead of, "I need to burn off this meal," try, "That was delicious, I'm glad we got to enjoy it." Instead of, "I feel so fat today," try, "I'm having a hard body day. I need some extra kindness." Instead of, "She really let herself go," try, "We don't know what someone's going through, and that body is still worthy." These changes may seem small, but they build a new culture, one where bodies are not currency, where food is not guilt, and where worth is not conditional. The friend who hears you speak with compassion and starts doing the same for themselves. The coworker who sees you advocate for accessibility and begins to pay attention. The partner who realizes love doesn't come with conditions. Every person you interact with is shaped by what you model, and that matters more than you think. Collective change begins with personal integrity. Ask yourself, how do I speak about my body when no one's listening? How do I speak about others' bodies when they're not in the room? What values am I passing down intentionally or not? Where am I still holding on to shame that I could release? Who am I becoming as I heal? You don't need to have it all figured out. But if you move through the world with integrity, if your actions align with your values, you're already building a different future. You're already participating in collective healing. Collective healing requires collective care. To create lasting change, we need each other. Healing in isolation is possible, but healing together is powerful. Here's how you can foster community around this work. 1. Join or create a supportive space. Book clubs, online groups, support circle spaces where people are doing this work together help us feel less alone and more accountable. 2. Center marginalized voices. Fat activism was built by Black, queer, disabled, and trans voices. Follow, support, and share their work. Let their leadership guide your growth. 3. Be willing to be uncomfortable. Growth is messy. Conversations will challenge you. You will make mistakes. Stay open. Stay humble. 4. Rest and restore. Fighting against systemic bias is exhausting. Take breaks. Breathe. You are not the entire movement, but you are part of it. Chapter summary. Key takeaways. Healing is personal, but its impact is collective. Your transformation gives others permission to begin theirs. Vulnerability builds connection and change. Honest dialogue is one of the most powerful tools we have. Advocacy takes many forms. From daily language to policy change, every act matters. You don't need to be perfect to lead. You just need to live your truth with integrity. Social change starts with personal awareness and scales with empathy. One changed mind can echo through many lives. Reflection prompts. What is one belief you've let go of that you used to hold about your body? Who in your life has been impacted directly or indirectly by your healing? What kind of body culture do you want to help create? Where can you start advocating for change in your home, work, or community? What's one small action you can take this week that reflects your values? In the final chapter, we'll come full circle redefining the scale, not as a measure of shame or success, but as a metaphor for your journey. Because what you carry matters, but so does how you carry it. And right now, you're learning to carry it with truth, grace, and power. Closing chapter, redefining the scale. The scale doesn't measure your worth. Let's redefine what it does measure. There was a time when a single number had the power to ruin my entire day. It didn't matter how I felt, how I moved, how I laughed, or even how deeply I was healing. If that number went up, I was a failure. If it went down, I was momentarily safe. My mood, my meals, my motivation, they all revolved around a device that claimed to tell the truth. That the scale doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't know your heart. It doesn't see your resilience. It doesn't measure the weight of your wisdom, your joy, your growth. And it certainly doesn't hold the final say in your worth. This chapter is your invitation to rewrite the story. To reclaim the scale not as a source of shame or control, but as a symbol of how far you've come in choosing a life guided by truth, not fear. You've done the work. You've unlearned. You've softened. You've seen yourself more clearly. And now, it's time to set down what no longer serves you and walk forward in a new way. A shift in the mirror and the mind. I remember the exact moment it changed for me. I had avoided the scale for months, knowing it triggered an old spiral. But one day I felt strong, grounded, curious. I stepped on it not to judge, but to see. The number was higher than I expected. In the past, that would have led to shame, restriction, overcorrection. But this time, something different happened. I stood there, breathing, and I said out loud, "Okay, that's information. That's not who I am." That moment didn't erase years of conditioning, but it cracked something open. It allowed a little light in. It reminded me that I have the right to define what health, healing, and happiness look like in my body on my terms. Let's redefine the scale. What if the scale didn't measure pounds? What if it measured things that actually matter? What if your weight could reflect the strength it took to stop dieting, the courage it took to start therapy, the joy you allowed yourself to feel, the meals you enjoyed without guilt, the nights you chose rest over restriction, the softness you extended to your younger self, the truth you spoke even when your voice shook, the days you showed up in your body without apology? What if the scale didn't shrink you, but reminded you of everything you've carried and how beautifully you're still standing? Let the numbers be data, not destiny. Let your body be home, not a battlefield. Let your worth be untouchable, measured only by your own knowing. Recapping the journey. Over the course of this book, we've unpacked the stories we've been told, the pain we've internalized, and the power we've always had but maybe forgot. Let's look back together. Chapter 1. The weight we don't see. We explored the invisible weight we carry: shame, stories, expectations, and how understanding our emotional landscape is the first step toward healing. Chapter 2. Biology isn't the enemy. We demystified weight gain, revealing how our bodies are biologically wired to protect us, not punish us. Science can be a doorway to self-compassion. Chapter 3. Food, fear, and fulfillment. We untangled our emotional connection to food, learning that comfort eating isn't a crime. It's often a clue to what we need. Chapter 4. The mirror and the media. We challenged the distorted lens of beauty culture and redefined what it means to truly see ourselves with honesty, not comparison. Chapter 5. Health isn't a size. We shattered the myth that thin equals healthy and began building a new definition of health, one that honors the body, mind, and spirit. Chapter 6. The psychology of shame and acceptance. We named shame for what it is, a cage, and we chose acceptance, forgiveness, and compassion as keys to freedom. Chapter 7. Navigating the world in your body. We stepped outside ourselves, acknowledging the social and systemic forces that shape our experiences, and the power of empathy to create change. Chapter 8. From self-awareness to collective change. We saw how personal healing becomes public impact. Every choice you make to live more fully invites others to do the same. Looking forward. A life beyond the scale. You will still have hard days. There will be moments when old thoughts creep in, when mirrors feel unkind, when shame tries to reclaim its seat at the table. But now, you have tools. You have awareness. You have a voice that knows how to speak back. You have your grounded self, your compassionate self, your free self. And every time you choose truth over comparison, nourishment over punishment, progress over perfection, you redefine the scale. Not just for you, but for every person watching you, every child growing up in a world still obsessed with shrinking, and every part of yourself still learning how to stay. Final takeaways. Weight is a chapter, not the whole story. Your journey is not defined by fluctuations. It's defined by who you are becoming. You're not broken, you're becoming. Growth is not linear. Healing is not a straight path. You are allowed to evolve. This is your body, your journey, your truth. No one else gets to write the ending for you. You get to decide what comes next. Final reflection prompts. What has shifted in your beliefs about your body since beginning this journey? What does freedom look and feel like in your body? What will you do differently from now on? Not because you have to, but because you want to. Who in your life could benefit from hearing your story? What truth do you never want to forget, even on the hard days? One last word. Thank you. Thank you for choosing this book, for choosing truth, for choosing yourself. This journey isn't about reaching an ideal. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you to be smaller, quieter, thinner, or less. You don't have to chase worth, you already have it. So walk forward, not in search of a number, but in celebration of who you've always been underneath it all. You are not your weight. You are not your past. You are not a project. You are a person, a process, a presence. And the scale? It's just a machine.